So, a question I've had for a really long time, and I feel like a lot of Yu Gi Oh players have too, is why is Konami still censoring Yu Gi Oh cards in the year 2025? Right? Why are we still changing card artworks to remove different elements and like cover them up and from the Japanese original versions of the cards still? It just feels a little bit weird, right? For instance, we're getting a new Dark Magician Girl retrain in the upcoming set Alliance Inside here in about a week or so, and her artwork, we already know, is being censored. They're still airbrushing cleavage and lengthening skirts. And the same thing goes for Diabell Star, the Dark Witch, which has kind of been the poster child of, the current like lore story going on in Yu-Gi-Oh for the last couple of years. And she got an alternate art card in Quarter Century Stampede, and it's also, it's censored. It's changed from the original art. So much so that a lot of people, like Alec, for instance, he's a big fan of Diabell Star. He just imported a Japanese version. That's what he plays in his deck for fun. Obviously, I know you can't really enter those in tournaments. But, anyways, to get back to the main point, why is Yu Gi Oh! Still censoring cards? Like, it just feels a little bit weird. And so, most of this video is just going to be speculation and me just sort of talking about why I think that they're still doing it, not justifying it. I think they just need to change it. And some of my maybe pet peeves about their practices around censorship, because I feel like I'll get to it. But yeah, to start from, I guess, the beginning, in early Yu Gi Oh!, I think that some of the card censorship and artwork changes made a lot of sense. So Yu Gi Oh! Does have plenty of just different religious references in a lot of the old card artworks, very sort of overt references to like, Christian themes or like just the devil or demons. Cards like Dark Ruler Hades having its artwork change and its depictions on cards like Skill Drain and stuff makes sense that some of that stuff would get changed. Monster Reborn's another example, or like just some of the images on like Exodia and stuff like that. I get it. I think that early on in the game, they were really trying to market it in the West for kids. And I think at the time, kids were certainly playing Yu Gi Oh! And watching the show and stuff. That's honestly partly why 4Kids did a lot of, card censorship and censoring concepts like the Shadow Realm. This is a very well documented 4Kids thing. Well, I understand those changes. The thing is now, though, I think most people would agree kids aren't really playing Yu-Gi-Oh very much anymore, or at least it certainly doesn't seem like it. Like I don't think that, your 7-year-old Jimmy is getting into Yu-Gi-Oh super proactively today. I think that there are probably kids being shown Yu-Gi-Oh cards by their parents or something like that. There are still Dragon Duelists, but it does feel a little bit weird, and some people might even say a bit not disrespectful, but like maybe patronizing a little for your audience that is very clearly people in their 20s and 30s having card artwork censored. Like, we can't handle the idea of a monster having cleavage. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of strange. And it also feels like it conflicts a bit with the fact that so many of the new archetypes that are coming out nowadays are like, the waifu girl archetype, right? That kind of is dressed slightly, maybe scantily, or just, whatever. I don't know. It's weird because like they're making the cards and then they're like censoring them. So you almost would think like if you know that you're going to have to censor the card, maybe don't even design it that way in the first place, or that's a separate thing. Not actually, it's not even really a separate thing. That is why do they do that? Anyway. Okay. So, another thing too, though, is that Yu-Gi-Oh has been doing Lost Art promotions, and that's sort of a solution to the censorship, right? Whenever they have to censor a monster, whether that's for like a sexual connotation or religious thing or whatever, they will release Lost Art cards, which you can get at local tournament stores that are, officially registered with Konami, where if you spend $30 on Yu-Gi-Oh products, then you will get whatever the current release of the Lost Art cards is. And I actually think that this is really cool. I remember when they first announced Lost Arts that I thought it was neat. They were doing like the Ankh, the original Ankh on Monster Reborn, and like the uncensored Exodia background. And like, it is cool. It's sort of a neat reward and like a bit of a throwback for these classic retro cards. I do think that an issue I have though with it is like when they will release, and this gets back to my whole like designing cards that are going to have to be censored anyway, is when they will release a card, censor the art in the TCG, and then make it be a Lost Art card like a month afterwards. Like that's kind of weird. Like one example of that was Ninja, what was like the Insect Ninja Mitsu. That was an example that I remember because like Alec was playing the Ninja deck, and Mitsu had her art changed where she's like wearing black leggings or whatever instead of showing bare legs. And fine, okay, they censored it. We're kind of all used to this by now. This is a common type of censoring that Konami likes to do for arts, is like just giving mostly female monsters. They'll just sort of get like bodysuits or like just like a sort of black leggings or black thing underneath to sort of imply that whatever. Well, anyway, they did that, and then they released Mitsu as a Lost Art card like 3 months after that. And at that point, it's kind of like, well, what is the difference then? Like, if the card is so raunchy and risque that it has to be censored, but then you release it as a lost art card that people can just get anyway, I don't understand. Like, are lost art cards just under a different designation than a regular Yu-Gi-Oh card is? Like, what's that about? As a side note, I heard a little bit of tea. I don't know if this is true or not. This is just something I heard through the grapevine. Is that apparently they do discourage people from using lost art cards in like YCS feature matches and stuff. But if someone's been in a feature match and you're watching this video, and you can comment and maybe let me know if you've been in that situation. Yeah, I think they discourage people from using that, but who knows? That's not trying to spread misinformation. Take it with a grain of salt. Anyway, though, back to the point. It's weird when they release these lost art cards, because lost arts for cards released in like 2002, 2003, whatever, like ages ago, totally fine. That stuff's just not really in print and it's really not relevant. But lost art cards for stuff that you're like actively making today. I know the Harpy Link monster, Harpy Conductor, that's another example of one where like it came out and then like 6 months later it's got a lost art where it's uncensored. So it's sort of weird. Yeah, that always felt maybe a little bit duplicitous. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of it. I guess it's not huge, but just something that's strange. So I was looking into it, and I feel like a lot just comes down to this whole 6+ rating that Yu-Gi-Oh cards get, where basically if you look at any Yu-Gi-Oh pack or product or whatever, it will have, the whole like for ages 6+ thing. And different card games have different age ratings. Some card games are like 12+, some are 10+. I think like Magic the Gathering is 12+. And most games like kind of are around like 9 or 10. I think Pokemon's maybe the only game that's like for 6 and older. It might even be younger. I don't know. But yeah, so Yu-Gi-Oh is still kind of using this 6+ label. And there are some like advertising and marketing benefits to it, which is why I think that they haven't actually changed it. So for instance, by being a game that is marketed for, ages 6+, they are able to run Yu-Gi-Oh ads on children's content. That's why they can run like Yu-Gi-Oh commercials during children's TV blocks. It's why they can run these sorts of commercials against like other kid-based content that gets advertising on YouTube and stuff. They can still like have ads appear there because it's like considered to be a game for young kids. Again, I don't know that lots of new kids are playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but I also don't have the sales data, so it could actually be different than we think. And also it allows them sort of different shelf space in stores. So if you think about a place like Walmart or Target, typically you will find lots of Yu-Gi-Oh cards on the card game section that's usually kind of near checkout, but sometimes might be tucked away depending on how your Walmart or your Target or whatever is set up. But that also means that because it's age 6+, they can actually put like Yu-Gi-Oh cards on the shelves in the toy section. And that probably is a lot more foot traffic for kids and parents who are buying kids things to find out about Yu-Gi-Oh and see it for the first time, because like it gets to be, in the toys where the kids like to be. They like to be in the toys. Not that many toddlers or youngsters are really going to be like finding the trading card game section on their own, because they're oftentimes like kind of just having to follow mom and dad around the store. They don't get to wander around, and the card game section is kind of tucked away. So this is a way of like getting Yu-Gi-Oh cards in front of those young ages. So I think that's why they haven't changed it. And because they haven't changed it, I guess they just are sort of contractually obligated to do card censorship. But it still makes me wonder like why the lost art thing gets to exist. Maybe that's because it's like a hobby shop thing. And so since it's hobby shops, it's not like bound by the same legal restrictions or something like that. That's my conjecture. I guess I say all this because like I wonder if there's anybody who can maybe speak to this more. I would really love to hear about it in the comments if you have experience with maybe like toys or children's products, or just like something about age ratings in gaming or whatever. Like, is it a gambling thing? Like, there's so many factors that go into it, and I would really like to know. So if anybody has, input that they can give, please let me know in the comments. And for the rest of us, what do you think about the Yu-Gi-Oh censorship situation? Like, do you feel that they kind of just take it too far, that maybe it's a little bit dismissive of the audience because, like, we're all adults here. We can handle a bit of cleavage. We can handle a cross or something being in a card. I personally think that they should just do away with it, but maybe there's a good reason why they can't. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that matter. And which do you do? Do you like to, import uncensored copies of cards and like use them in your deck just when you're playing with friends and stuff locally? Because that's something that Alec does, and I've kind of considered doing the same thing myself, because I do use some decks that have like some censored cards that'd be kind of neat to have. Okay, cool. Well, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the discussion. You can sound off below in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.